Alrighty, so I wanted to go over the entire ReZero Collab characters gear sets because I'm sure a lot of you are pulling for the characters, you're trying to invest into the characters, you might need to know what's the optimal gear for each of them. So we're just going to go over the entire collab here. We're going to start with Amelia because she's just kind of first. Amelia is an interesting character. She's a support character on all grounds of her regular cards. So if you don't know, she has a freeze card and a dissolve card, a deplete ultimate move gauge after on the enemy's turn, just like Green Gother. All of her main damage comes from her ultimate, which is a secret technique, which means that if you have extra cards in hand, it's going to deal more damage. That can be insanely heavy hitting, but for the most part, she's just not a damage dealer at heart. Her regular cards are not going to be doing damage, basically at all. I mean, she does a little bit of damage, but not much. She's just pure support. Definitely want as much CC on her as you possibly can, because if you can go first, that's obviously really good. So HP defense is definitely what I went for here. I guess if you wanted to just do like an ult rush team, you could potentially go for like an attack defense or an attack crit damage set, but would highly not recommend doing that. So that's what I have on her. If any of these characters you have a different set than me, definitely let me know down in the comments below, and why you made it, and if you actually get good results out of it, I would be much appreciated to hear that. Rem is the next character, and she is obviously just a big damage dealer, so I went for attack crit damage on her. She just does overall more damage. She's meant to be a heavy attacker. She has an amplify card, and she can very easily get buffs to deal more damage for the amplify card, so that's going to be your big Q. You want to deal as much damage as possible. Pretty self-explanatory. She has a pretty heavy hitting AoE ultimate with a shatter. It's not like the best you've ever seen. Shatter's not really the greatest anymore, but it's altogether not terrible. And her regular cards aren't too bad either, so attack crit damage is what I opted for. Plus, she's a really good PvE unit, so even if you're if you're not going to be using her in PvP where you want to have the most CC as possible, HP defense doesn't really matter in PvE stuff because CC is not normally a big issue. So attack crit damage all the way. Next up, we have Rom. Rom is a complete backline unit. She works in the sub slot. You want to have her in the sub slot. Her cards really just aren't great up front. Like, they just don't deal too much damage. Even though she has 2 attack cards, she does have a stun, and her ultimate is kind of okay if you can ever get it off. But because you're using her in the backline most of the time, you're basically just using her as a stat buffer, which means you just want to have as much HP on her as possible to get as much CC. So obviously we're running HP defense for her. I actually don't use the character too much. I kind of prefer to use the green base Merlin with the Holy Relic because she increases unknown damage dealt, and the ultimate move gauge that she increases. But altogether, still a very good unit. I don't even have mine level 100 yet, but I do have the Holy Relic and everything. She'll easily get past like probably 61k or so CC, which is pretty good for like a backline unit. So altogether, not bad. HP defense. Beatrice is a very bad unit, but if you actually want to invest into her, I think that HP crit damage would probably be the best, because you want her to have CC and you want her to tank, I guess, a little bit if possible, but her whole gimmick is to lifesteal and then give that lifesteal to her allies to heal them. And she gets a Holy Relic, which increases her crit damage and crit chance by 80%. So I think putting extra crit damage gear on her, so that way she's dealing as much damage as possible, so that way she's lifestealing as much as possible, would probably be the most beneficial. I could definitely see just running HP defense instead for maximum CC, but I guess like optimal set to get the most use out of her kit would probably be HP crit damage. Obviously, I don't have the character invested into, don't plan on it. She's not very good, so I don't know. Definitely let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one if you're planning on actually increasing her or just like using her at all, but that's basically what I got. Next up, we have the 2 new units. We have Echidna and Reinhardt. So Echidna is a very interesting one because she is kind of like a support in the ways of like really buffing up unknown race allies, but at the same time she can deal a really good amount of damage. So if you want to go full support with her, maybe rely on like a Rimuru or like a Festival Merlin or somebody like that to deal the actual blunt of the damage on your unknown team, I could definitely say that running like HP defense would be fine on her. I opted to go for attack crit damage on her. My set's not completely done yet, so I haven't UR'd it yet. But I'm going for attack crit damage because she does really good damage with her card. She has an AoE infect card, which hits pretty hard, and she has an AoE sever card, which hits pretty hard. So if you look at her, you know, Holy Relic, it increases the damage dealt by to debuffed enemies by 35%, and a lot of the unknown team, you know, allies that you're going to be using with her are going to debuff regardless. So popping a debuff using her cards to deal big damage is pretty good, and her ultimate hits really hard even at low levels. So I opted for that. I'm planning on using her for the farming team and a little bit more PvE activities because I don't necessarily run the unknown team all that much. So for me personally, it was way more beneficial to go for the attack crit set. I haven't actually used her in geared PvP just yet, but I've seen enough gameplay of the JP players using attack crit and HP defense to say that you can go either way. But I guess it just depends on what team setup you're going for, or what kind of use you're going to get out of the character. So you can really go, you know, left or right here. You can go attack or HP. I opted for attack, but you can, you know, just whatever fits your role a little bit more. Last up, we have Reinhardt, who is pretty locked into what he needs. He is basically just an HP crit damage character. You're basically going to do the same thing that you did with Bon. If you have Purgatory Bon and you've invested into him, you just want as much HP as you can possibly get on him. Defense is fine, but for the attack rolls, you want to make sure that you do either crit damage or crit chance. I feel like a lot of people are leaning more towards crit chance. I definitely leaned a little bit heavier into damage, so all of these are crit damage rolls, and I think I only have 2 crit chance rolls on this piece, which, you know, personal opinion, he has a sever card. It already has 3 times, you know, crit chance. He's basically going to crit every single time with that card regardless. And yeah, you know, having the crits on the flood card would definitely be beneficial as well. But I mean, it's not like his crit chance is bad, you know, he's just going to crit more often. So you could definitely go for like 1 piece pure crit damage, 1 piece pure crit chance, or, you know, whatever the case may be. You'll kind of have to just, you know, eyeball it. I basically just re-rolled the gear, and if I got a pretty good roll for HP or for crit chance or crit damage with this piece, I just kept it. So I was just rolling all of these manually. I got a good damage roll, got a good chance roll, got a good damage roll, got a good chance roll, you know, etc. So that's my personal preference. If you have any specifics on what you recommend running, down in the comments would be appreciated. But yeah, basically just going for as much HP as possible, because if you don't know how the character works, all of his HP or all of his like damage is coming from the max HP of the hero, not his attack stat. So it doesn't matter what his attack is, you want as much HP as possible. So, you know, pretty easy to stack that with his Holy Relic, and, you know, running him on the Bond team where all of the characters are basically buffing HP regardless. So very good stuff. That's basically it, though. Don't have anything else to say. If you have any thoughts and opinions, different sort of opinions on what gear you should run for different characters, definitely let me know down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you guys in the next one.